So welcome everyone. We just really appreciate your continued support. This is officially the first session of the WBL Institute, in this 21-22 school year. We are always excited to have you guys join, whether you've been here before or you're new. We definitely want to be able to continue to, provide support as the WBL team under CTE. And this is professional development specifically aimed at work-based learning coordinators, but we know that there's so many folks who are in the community that are doing the work and may not necessarily have the official title. So for all of you, we just appreciate that you continue to support. And we hope that this is helpful in some way. So again, every second Wednesday of the month, work-based learning Wednesdays, we're calling them, and 4 to 5 is the time period that we're going to be spending. So moving to the next slide. This is the landing page for the WBL Institute. You guys know how to register through Eventbrite. This is where you go to see the content for all of the sessions coming up. We have 8 sessions this year. And obviously, for those of you who may be new to the process, you get your tickets within the registration. So once you've signed up, you get the email and the link is embedded. Hopefully it wasn't too hard for everybody coming in today. And, FYI, we will be sending a recording of session 1, the original session 1, which we missed in October because of deployment, so that you guys will benefit from that as well. So that's coming. So we've started officially with session 2, and we will move through the calendar as normal. And, again, if you feel like there's any problem with getting access, please reach out to the team so we can troubleshoot with you. So this lovely landing page was created by Larry Williams on our team, and we wanted to continue to use it so people did not get lost or confused. It's the same thing. We're going to keep it going because it works. So moving to the next slide. We have a full roster presenting today, and these are all the players on the WBL CTE team. So we have, and I will let everybody introduce themselves so you can hear from each and every one of us. So go ahead and kick us off.
Good afternoon. Thank you for that, Takia. My name is, well, hopefully you all know me. I'm Desmond Jardine. Glad to be here.
Good afternoon. My name is Larry Fleming Williams, also a part of the team. Happy to be here, happy to support.
You guys know myself, Takia Weeks. I am definitely excited to be in service, and I will kick it over to Joe Pinto.
Hi everyone, I'm Joe Pinto. I'm really happy to be here. Formerly the director of CTE for the Urban Assembly Network of Schools. Have been working since then in many schools and many districts on CTE and work-based learning. And this district and this team always feels like home. So I'm glad to be back.
Thank you so much, Joe. And so for all of you who may be wondering, obviously we miss Trevor Patton, who has worked with CTE for over 5 years. She's done so much to get the programming aspect all the way to where it is now. I know it was not an easy feat. She's put blood, sweat, and tears into, the programming, going from CTE ISP, the ISP program, CTES. I can name so many more. She's done numerous professional developments as well. So we are merging together as a programming WBL arm and a professional development or capacity building arm as well, because the two go hand in hand. So we are doing this as one, and we're hopeful that we can really showcase how we need to see kind of on a continuum growth within the CTE community. And so hopefully this is facilitating that growth. We're hoping that more people will be able to feel, I guess, ready to do this work. And in turn, empower your students to be able to take advantage of even more opportunities this year. So that's the goal. On the wings, we also want honorable mention to go to Bruce Levinson, who, although he's no longer officially teaching, is actually a thought partner with us and is contributing with us in some of the things that we're doing this year. So I didn't know if you wanted to just say a quick few words, Mr. Bruce.
Sure, why not? Hi, I'm Bruce Levinson, as you go. I used to work with the High School for Health Professions and Human Services. I will be working with Desmond and Larry and Takia, and also we're doing the CTE Workplace Challenge again for the fall. I can help out with that, and I just want to let you guys know that if you need anything, I'm available.
Thank you so much, Bruce. All
You're
right,
welcome.
so we're going to move to the next slide. The
Thank
meeting
you.
norms. Go ahead and take it over, Desmond.
Appreciate you, Takia, as always. Thank you so much. And, again, just really looking forward to continuing fantastic WBL Institute, that you guys started last year. So in terms of just the norms of today's session, we want to make sure that we know that we all participate in making the session useful, right? Like as we said earlier, everyone in this room has expertise, and everyone in this room, can really provide context and perspective to the rest of us, right? So we really just want to share information and grow together. In that spirit, we want to commit to being present in the session as best we can. We know that, a lot of our attention is being pulled in multiple directions even now, but, as best we can focus and really be together, we ask for that. We also encourage you to speak up, right? Or if you're not comfortable speaking or can't, just please always throw it in the chat. The chat sometimes becomes more lively, a place for conversation and thought than, the loud speak, but we also really enjoy hearing your voice. And lastly, at the end of the session, please complete the exit survey. It's vitally important for us, one, to just, get a framework for how we've done, but also as we'll, kind of clue into, we have some more services that we need to provide based off of our survey results. Next slide, please. So to give you a feel of what today's session looks like, we've done the arrival and the introductions. That'll, introduction to framing coming now. But then after that, we want to kind of move into the idea of what the WBL dream team look like, right? Like, how do we build it in our school? We want to talk about it, and we really just want to, get a stronger idea of what the roles are and how we can build towards those roles, so that, we really have optimally functioning school teams within our schools, and really just hopefully give you some tools and some ideas about how to bring these dreams and ideas into fruition. Finally, we will have some, final announcements and thoughts about our coaching protocol. So, we'll get into that in a bit. But yeah, next slide, please. So before we get into our framing question and everything else, we wanted everyone to kind of take a moment and really just kind of have a gut check, right? So just in your head, and if you really, like to share, you can throw it in the chat, but in your head, in this moment, where do you feel your WBL program is, right? Are you in place A? I think I've personally experienced all of these different levels, even like last summer, right? Just going from like, look, this work is overwhelming, it's crazy, to like, oh, I have a team, I have some people holding me down, to, we're building something, to, eventually being like, nope, we're solid, we're good, we know what this feels like. So, but again, we want a snapshot of today, this year, this moment for you. Where are you? Hold on to that. We'll come back to this a little bit later on in the afternoon. But once again, glad that you're all here, and transition to the next slide, please. And to my good friend, Larry, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Desmond. Hopefully everyone can hear me. So for the framing question that we have today is, how can work-based learning become more of a team effort at my school? So just want to start this off by saying that by just letting the cat out of the bag, there is no magic trick. There is no quick fix to the question or to this framework question, but it's just more to give you an idea of where we want to go with this conversation. There is, however, on our part, there's going to be a commitment to supporting you through this mission. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I would hate for you to walk away from all of this thinking that the answers that we're giving you are the right answers. A lot of it is going to be trial and error as we work with you to assess what it is your situation is and where it is that you want to go. But before we get into that too, I also want you to do some self-assessment of yourself and your current situation. right? So to help us with the framing exercise, I want you to like assess yourself and just take stock in things that you're already doing at your school, but also take stock of what are you good at? You know what I mean? As you're thinking about what your team looks like, there's a lot of people who are doing this work right now who they do put their blood, sweat, and tears in this, and they're doing everything. But if you were to take a step back and kind of just look at and just ask yourself, like, well, what is it I'm good at? What are some of the things that I can probably share with other people who can help me share the burden of what it is that we're trying to accomplish? We just want you to think about all of this as we get into the discussion today. So we talked about in the agenda the dream team, and I don't know if anyone can see my background, but my background is kind of like chemistry, right? And I was kind of relating this to like, I thought about relating it to basketball, but I think I'm going to stick with baking, where, you know, your basic elements of baking of sugar, flour, salt, all of those ingredients don't have to make the same thing, right? The different combination of things can actually they can make good things. They can also make things that don't come out as well or blow up in your face, right? Over here, we have a list of the different people who would be a part of the dream team at your school. So we built out a comprehensive list of some of the people that are involved and some of the things that these people will bring to the table. The thing about it is that because we haven't really done an assessment with you, some of the things that are listed under each position, you might already be doing them yourself, right? But now is the time where we're trying to figure out, well, who can you offload some of these things to? And I wanted to be a little bit more vulnerable when we're talking about the dream team a little bit. And I said, you know what, I want to put myself and my team on full blast, just for a little bit, because we were essentially two people who were tasked with doing this work, and we're growing into 3, into 4, into 5 people. And there have been times where sorry, you can mute yourself. There have been times during the course of putting together this workshop, like I'll ask myself, like, you know, Dag, am I being heard, or is my voice being valued? And what it is that as your team starts to grow, the makeup of the team is changing. And you have to kind of self-reflect on, all right, what does everyone else in that team do well? What do I bring to the table? What do I do well? And kind of figure out what that makeup is that's going to make us successful. So these are some of the things that we want you to think about. You can take a snapshot of what's on the screen, but we'll definitely be sharing this later, because like I said, there's a lot of what's here that you're already doing, but how can you offload it to other members on your team so you can create that dream team for your school? And Joe is going to expand on that a little further.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot, Larry. So as you said, this is not by no means definitive, and it's going to look different at every school in this. So we just thought we would put together some of the roles, the colleagues that you might have who might bring some strengths to the team. I think to Larry's point, it's a really fair one. When these people are doing their jobs well, it's going to take ideally, hopefully, some of the work off of your plate. That can feel strange. That can feel weird. It can feel like, you know, I think there's when you are a team of one, as much as you want help, there's also often a kind of a tendency to hug the work and say, I've got to do this all. And so when you start to get your right team together and offload pieces of the work, if it's working well, people are going to be taking on their share. And then it becomes more your job to kind of sit in the middle as the convener, and make sure that all of the pieces are being carried well and fitting together. I'm not going to talk through this whole slide as far as what the bullet points say, but we did, you know, make an effort to really be concise and clear about where we think each of these different roles can contribute best, like why they would be a good fit for a work-based learning team. How they could support you. I should also mention, and this is going to be coming up a little bit later, and it's also mentioned in the resources that are in the folder that will be shared at the end. There's a little bit of a difference between a formal and an informal CTE or WBL team. Like you know this. Many of you are probably working in an informal capacity where no kind of like official team is convened, but you know that you lean on this person to do, you know, X, and you lean on another person to do Y. And you know, in some schools, that informal dynamic works best. if there can be a move toward a formal team where it is authorized by the administration, the roles are, they're articulated, they're delineated, people have concrete responsibilities, the team is convening in a semi-regular way. Like, that's the vision, that's the goal, getting to that place where it feels like a cohesive unit, it's authorized by the administration, and everybody's carrying a piece of the work. That's this vision that we're presenting here. But also we know that between here and then, between now and then, for a lot of people, it's going to look more like figuring out when you can find each of these people where they work, when it, you know, when it makes sense to find them, and bring them in piece by piece as collaborators. So we're, you know, take a second, as Larry suggested, take a screenshot, look at this. We're going to be talking about it. I think the next slide might be
Well, actually,
yeah.
Joe, before we go on to the next slide, because you mentioned formal and informal, and something I wanted to bring up. Last year, we took a poll to ask people, like, you know, about their WBL team at their school. And some of the results that we saw was a little bit, I don't want to say confusing, but so like we'd ask some of the schools, how many people do you have on your WBL team? And some people shared out that they had 10 people or that they had 6 people. But then in the comment section, they also shared out that they were struggling with the work. So it kind of, you know, it kind of led us to think, well, if you have 10 people on your team, are those people in name? Do you have like a parent coordinator and an industry partner or a social worker? Are those people a part of your team in name, or are they a part of your team because they're actually doing the work with you? You know, and I feel like that's part of that informal and formal piece. And we kind of want to deal with the piece, well, with who's actually digging in and doing the work with you. So I'll go on to the next slide, Joe. So what we want to do is actually put you guys into breakout rooms to discuss 2 to 3 roles I would add to my work-based learning team first. So in small groups, discuss the 2 to 3 dream team roles you would start your WBL team with, either because they're the most important to you or because at your school, they would be the easiest to involve right away. And there's a bonus question. Are there roles you would add to the team that were not on the list? And this is a part of when you think about a dream team, if I would ask you to build an NBA dream team, I mean, and you choose, maybe you'll choose LeBron James, or you'll choose, I don't know, a Michael Jordan. Like, you're giving me a whole bunch of names, and I'm pretty sure that they're great players, but what does the chemistry look like between them, right? So this is the part where you're starting to look at, what do I do well, and what might I be struggling with that I know someone else does a great job at? Because at that point, that'll be the time to start building relationships with those people. So, and Joe, I don't know if you wanted to add anything else before I started to put them in breakout rooms.
No, I think that's great. Let's go into breakouts.
Okay.
So welcome back, everyone. We are running a couple of minutes behind, and so we may cut this segment a tiny bit short, but I would still like to spend a few minutes asking folks to, you know, as you like, as you will. It's not required, but anyone who wants to speak up and speak out, please, you know, do so in the chat or take yourself off mute and just let us know, what roles did you talk about? Why? How did they come up? Why did you talk about them? Does anyone have anything they want to share?
I'll share, because I'm not shy. We had a really great talk. We started on track, and then we shared a lot of best practices. That's what we did. I honestly feel, because I've been at the school for 20 years, that it's the 2 strongest people to start with is your CTE teacher and your work-based learning coordinator to get the ball rolling. Yeah, it's always great to have support from admin. This year, for the first time ever at my school, we got a community liaison, and I was, you know, doing cartwheels. I was like, yes, finally, because we all know we don't get out into the community as much as we would like to, based on our schedules. But, you know, hey, somebody else to continue this. I don't know how that's working, but that was the goal. But I think it definitely, and I think networking is really important, because I'm on, I think, everybody's distribution list in the whole state. So I get all of these really cool opportunities for workplace challenges and
Yeah.
workplace learning experiences that I can forward to the CTE teachers. So I think the networking is really important.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely
Karen.
agree.
Yep.
So one of the things that I guess I had brought up was what would be helpful, at least for us with the number of students we have, is to have someone who is like dedicated doing all the computer stuff. Because it's not hard. It's not totally not intuitive, but there's so much that we're doing because
Tedious.
yeah, it's a lot of tedious, like clicking, pointing. And the only people in our building who are doing it is us as the CTE teachers. So we don't have like the people on our team to kind of help us do all that stuff. So I'm trying to delegate stuff to my colleagues who are also CTE teachers to get a little help on like calling sites, be like, hey, I need you to safety plans. Let's get you recommitted, blah, blah, blah. So I can get kids on work sites and get them paid eventually. And like, but we also have to do a ton of backdating. And between that and the employability profiles, like I think David brought up that he's doing it twice a year. We decided we were doing it twice a year as well. It's a lot. It would be nice if we had more people who were helping us out, because it seems like at this point it's just us on the CTE department and our work-based coordinator, who unfortunately is also RIP, so, and who's on maternity. So it's like we're a little overwhelmed as a department.
And Linda, you got cut off before we came back in the room talking about how it would be great for the guidance counselors to get involved. Can you say a little more?
Yeah, so I found out that this year, instead of the guidance counselors meeting one-on-one with each student so that they were keeping track of what these kids were doing, they're now doing group sessions instead of like one-on-one. And I'm like, wait, what? So especially for like our CTE program, we need buy-in from our guidance counselors. We need our guidance counselors to like, not just be like, oh, you can graduate without your CTE endorsement. Don't worry about it. We're like,
Yeah.
don't do that to us, please, God. Don't stop that. Stop that. And also be like, hey, we need you to meet one-on-one with our CTE kids. We need you to be on top of and tracking what they're doing, because these kids are getting above and beyond what everybody else in this building is getting. They're the ones who showcase that our building is amazing. We need to get them on board. And if they could step in and help out with, you know, even something little of like, hey, you're not doing your paperwork. Why are you not handing your paperwork? Why aren't you getting your hours done? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Like, help us out a little bit, because there's only so many times people like, hi, Johnny, what are you doing for your work-based learning experience? What are you doing for your hours? What are you doing? Like, here's 1,000,001 different volunteer things that you can do. Here's some paid internships that you can do that are outside of our building. Just bring us proof that you did it, and I'll put it in as something. I'll figure it out at some point. Like, help me out here.
Yeah, Linda, you talked about the need for buy-in, and I wanna go back to a couple of other things that came up in our group that were so related to buy-in. The first is the phrase grunt work was used, right? We need, if only people could help share the grunt work. And, you know, it's one thing when you say we're building a WBL team and, you know, we want so-and-so for their expertise and this other person for their connection to, you know, different community stakeholders. That's, you know, it can be a little lofty when you're drowning in grunt work, and you also want people to share the like roll up the sleeve stuff. And having buy-in and having a culture in which work-based learning is valued, important, centered, you know, that can definitely add to that. In the same way that, you know, we talked in our group about when there are teachers who are doing work-based learning, but it's not being documented. And so that's almost the opposite problem. It's not as though people aren't pitching in, they are, but there's no cohesion and coherence. There's no sense that this is all part of the same thing. And we have a responsibility to kind of actually, you know, track this and show that it's happening, and bring it back around to the students' narrative of their experience through CTE and work-based learning. And all of these things, you know, do depend, and they depend on other things, but they depend in some respects on a culture of buy-in as well. We're going to move a little bit along.
Just as a quick side note, it also feels like, I don't know if this is just specific to my building, but it feels like CTE takes a back seat in a lot of ways. It's like graduation.
You got to get the admission. Yeah, you got to get the administration involved.
And the admin like loves us, but at the same time, like they're so much more focused on graduation instead of getting them prepared for things like career in college, that we're just like,
yeah.
That's why you need to bring in the CTE, you know, post-secondary people coming in and helping. I did that a couple of times with, you know, and having meetings with, you know, your executives from CTE office that'll come in and have talks with your principal and assistant principals and let them know how important it is. Because sometimes you need some backup from the CTE office, and they're definitely out there to help you. I've done that several times in the past, and it really did make a difference. When I had Florence, for example, come in and Laura Bucco talk to my principal, things got done.
Yeah.
So
So
sometimes you got to bring in the heavy guns.
Yeah, this is a good segue into actually our next slide, where we talk about actually making the dream a reality. These are not, these are kind of three broad ideas. This is not definitive. The list can go on and on, but some of the things that we talked about as a team involve, so this first item here, top down or bottom up, do you try to initiate forming a formal team by getting your administration to authorize that work, or do you start to approach the individuals themselves and say, I'm working on a thing, our students who we mutually serve and care about, like, would be really excited about it, would benefit from it. Do you want to help me with it? There are advantages and disadvantages to starting from the administration and starting from your colleagues and your team. So it's worth thinking about as you start to put together your strategy. Takia, do you want to go on to the next one?
Sure. So the other one is, a proposal. And sometimes it's as simple as that, almost like, you're putting together a business strategy, thinking about who all you would want to include in this work and what their role is going to look like. So barring the list that we provided, as Larry had mentioned, there might be things that you do well, but there are areas of growth for you that you can identify that someone else actually has a strength in. And so it really would be important for you to list out the duties. What are the expectations that you have in terms of, what you'd like to get done this year? And then thinking about it in terms of the roles that others can take on, how could you delegate by way of proposal? So going to your admin, going to your AP and saying, hey, these are the things I need to happen. Is there a way for us to be able to sit together and think about who on the staff could come on board and kind of work with me on these things? And this is the time it's going to be able to take. If these folks have classes and things that they're doing, it would only take maybe an hour extra a week, or, being able to quantify it also helps to make that process a little bit easier, so that you can tell yourself, okay, I can devote this many hours, and then I have these other things that need to get done. And so these folks would be able to alleviate by helping me do these things. And I think having it be presented in that way shows how professional you are, number one, but two, the fact that you've thought this through hopefully will make it much more easier to implement if your principal is going to support you in that.
And I should add that it doesn't have to be elaborate. I know for those of you who are doing a million things, it feels counterinstinctive to sit down and write this proposal. It can be a very short and sweet, and really, as Takia says, it can focus on the needs, the concrete needs. Particularly given Kenneth's comment in the chat, teachers have limited prep time already, hard to talk to them about being involved. Right, exactly. And so it may, this is not a magic fix, but it may quell some concerns about kind of like inflating demand, or kind of run, like when, if teachers are afraid that that you will be imposing on their time in a way that they can't visualize, like how that's contained. It might be helpful to show that to them, and show them that there are kind of distinct and limited roles that they're going to play, or that you'd like them to play. Make it a little bit easier for them to do so. And then the final part is just, as some of you who are already doing this know, you're staging some smaller collaborations with Build that actually show their kind of proof of concept, their proof that, of the value of work-based learning, their proof that everyone does have a role to play, and then it's not going to be super overwhelming. It's not going to consume people if everybody plays a little part. So kind of staging some initial collaborations that can show immediate success and excitement can be helpful as well. But as we've said, there are many other strategies to be thinking about as well, and taking this further into the next steps.
Yep, I agree with you, Joe, on all of those. And, we'd love to know if there's anything else that we haven't thought about that others of you who are seasoned in this work can chime in on. We know we have a few of you who have figured out kind of ways to get this to happen, whether it's currently this school year or previously kind of creating your system and your structure. So if there are things that we should be adding to this, please pipe up. And if not, we can move on to the next slide because we only have about 6 minutes left. So keeping it going. I think you're up again, Desmond.
Sorry, thank you for that, Takia. I forgot to take myself off of mute. It's been a long day. So as we get to closing out, we as we said, we wanted you to think about where your program was a little bit earlier in the afternoon. And again, as we think about ourselves, our program, and our team, as Larry said, we also have to think about what skills we bring to the table, right? Like, who are we? So again, as you assess yourself and you think about it, are you more administrative and organizational? Are you the student relationship builder, right? Like, are you the outreach person and partner developer? Like, or are you the team spirit? Are you the glue, right? So really thinking about where you fall into these places, and then therefore, what is the next person that you need, right? If you're the glue, do you need the person who can get everybody else on board, right? Or do you need that person who really is like the student whisperer? So, so yeah, throw it in the chat, please. We got a couple of answers going on. Come on, we got 4-7. I need some more participants. What is it?
We got a poll going, so if you guys can answer the poll questions, we'll be really excited to see how this shakes out in the end. I mean, what it will tell us too is kind of where we're kind of top heavy in terms of certain skill sets in this group, but also for you guys to start thinking of in the areas that we don't get a lot of folks here, that might be how we decide who to source for the next team member that you want to add to your team. If you don't have a specific skill, that might be something that will be helpful for you to find in someone else on your staff. So, and obviously this is not an exhaustive list. This is just kind of broad strokes buckets that we decided that we would use to categorize some of the work. So please let us know. I think we're almost done with the poll, but.
So, I'm sorry to interrupt, Takia, but
go ahead.
So at this point, it would seem most of the responses are in, and it seems like most folks see themselves as administrative and organizational, which is not shocking considering the work that you do. But yeah, so really thinking about that, thank you for sharing. But also that tells us, right? Like if we're the admin thinkers, we're the organizers, I'll share the results out so you can kind of see how it went. But yeah, so if we're the organizers, we're the administrative type folk, again, who else do we bring onto the team, right? Like what's the next piece of personality? What's the next building block that we bring in? So really just want to thank you for that. Next slide, please.
So as we start to wrap up, we want to mention to you guys that part of the Institute this year includes coaching. We know that coming to a whole bunch of PDs, maybe for an hour and a half, does not solve whatever challenges you might be going through at your school. So we want to take it a step further and have you guys come back if you need to for coaching that is going to be every week after each WBL session. So starting next week, same time, 4 to 5, we will be offering an hour of coaching for anyone who feels like this is a subject or a topic area that they definitely still need support, even after some of the nuggets of wisdom that were shared today. We know that this is something that you would consistently need to build toward. And so obviously it's going to take more work, more support. So we would love to be able to see some of you guys, especially if you're new at this work, in coaching. It is going to allow for some individual time. And so, we'd love to, through the exit ticket, get a sense of, if your interest is there and exactly where you might need the support. So every week, after a session, we will have coaching, and then we pick up with the third, in this case, WBL Institute session in December. So in the in-between, there's coaching, and then we go to the next WBL Institute session based on the calendar. That might get thrown off slightly a little bit with the holidays, but for the most part, we're going to stay on track. And then moving to the open call for burning questions. I don't know if anyone else on the team wants to take this one.
I'll take a little stab at that one.
Thanks,
I think throughout the course of last year, a lot of people always put questions into the chat, and we want to try to do a better job of staying on top of questions, but also providing answers for those questions. So some of the questions that you may drop into the chat during the workshops, we want to make space to make sure that we're answering those questions for you. So we're going to encourage you not only during this session, but during all sessions that you drop questions into the chat. And even if we don't get back to them during that session, we do plan on giving a recording of ourselves responding to those questions, along with any thoughts that we may have had on the session itself. So please feel free to either voice your questions out loud or use the chat to get in touch with us.
And I'll just add very quickly to that, this whole idea of recording ourselves discussing the questions. So some questions are technical in nature. They have a pretty, concrete and defined answer. And other questions are more questions of strategy and style. And so we thought that it would be helpful for folks to actually hear the team kind of getting into it, getting into the meat of like, why do this instead of this? But you could also do it this way. Like we have points of agreement and disagreement and different ideas among us too. So if we could bring that to the table where questions demand it, where they call for it, we want to be able to offer that to you.
Yep. And so we will be sending you guys the link to the resource folder post this session. There's a lot that's in there that hopefully is going to support you as you start to source, folks on your team. So I encourage you guys, once you get the post email, to take a look and, go in and see what else you can utilize. And so we're at time. I'm going to kick it over to Larry to close us off, but just want to say thank you again for taking the time, and good luck with the parent-teacher meetings for those of you who are heading off to those right now.
Thanks.
Go for it, Larry.
Thanks, Takia. As always, as part of our resources, we have the WBL Institute calendar. And you will, as Takia mentioned before, you will get the link in an email for the WBL Institute calendar, the session resource folder, and for the CTE exit ticket. Along with that, on the calendar, we're going to be putting the link for the recording. So you will always see the link for all recordings on the Institute calendar. The CTE exit ticket, please make sure to fill it out. Can someone please drop it into the chat?
Yep. That's done.
Thank you. And on behalf of myself, Takia, Desmond, Joe, and CTE, we thank you for attending. For more information, please get in touch with any one of us. We're here for you. So it'll only work if you get in touch with us, if we're in communication with each other. So please utilize our supports, and we look forward to working with you individually and collectively. Have a good afternoon, everyone.